Hey, this is James Hood with James Hood Guitar in San Diego, California, and you are listening to Tales from the Hood. Today we've got Jamie Muehlhausen in the house. Jamie Muehlhausen has done a lot of design work for a lot of people, but in particular, he is the creative director for Tony Hawk, as well as Vibrasonic Designs, and his design work is sought after by many guitar companies, quite honestly. So Jamie, it's great to have you on the show today.
Great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. How long have we known each other now?
Phew, a long time, maybe 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's like
A long time.
back when the repair shop was over in the backside of Buffalo Brothers, I think.
Yeah.
Is when I met you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you remember the first guitar you brought in?
Do you?
Or did it get away?
Probably? It probably got away. I don't know. I don't remember what I brought in. Oh, I probably brought something in to put a pickup in it, I bet.
It was a Showbud.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I got obsessed with Showbud guitars because Showbud makes, for anybody that doesn't know, Showbud makes pedal steel guitars.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, they made some acoustic guitars that were made in Japan, kind of like a same quality as like some of the Takaminis and Yamahas of that time period that were all made in the really good factories in Japan. Mm-hmm. And they only made them for a few years, and they had the little like hearts and diamonds and spades and clubs inlaid on the neck.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I saw one, and I just got really super obsessed with it. And there's 4 models. There's the club model, the spade, and so I decided I would try to collect all 4. Then I found out there was another model called the Grand Slam that
Baseball related?
that was all 4, all 4 of the from the decks of cards, whatever.
Oh, the suits?
Yeah,
Okay.
all 4 suits. And so, and then I found out that they only made one of those, and George Jones owned it, or it was given to George Jones. So there was no way you could collect all of them. George Jones had one.
Right.
And then the rest of them would pop up on eBay every once in a while. And at one point I had 3 of them, but I could never get the spade. So anyway, so then I gave the Heart model to a friend of mine who still has it. And it's a great guitar, and then I sold mine. But anyway, but yeah, I think I brought that into you and to get a pickup put in it.
Yeah. I think maybe it was a K&K at that point.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, love those pickups. K&K, pure minis.
Yeah. That's what I have in all mine right now.
There's a plug for them, eh?
Yeah, I know, exactly. New sponsor.
Right? Oh,
Yeah.
you never know, they might call me. So when we were working together at that point, I had just found out that you were doing some design work for Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. I remember running into him in Lance Mountain at North County Fair Mall.
Oh, wow.
When I was younger, and walking up to him, hey, hi.
Yeah.
I skate too.
Yeah.
But how did all that start for you?
Well, my very first graphic design job, I grew up in Oklahoma, and then I moved out here in 1987. And my very first graphic design job was with this shoe company that was brand new, that had never existed, called Airwalk. And they became like this huge shoe company in the skate world especially, but in surf and snowboarding and stuff like that later on too. And so I did graphic design and ads and marketing and a million different things. It was a really cool first job to have. Mm-hmm. And Tony Hawk was 19-year-old skateboarder kid that skated for Airwalk at the time.
Yeah.
I think he was world champion also, but
Yeah.
at that point in time, that didn't really mean a whole lot, Like the world champion of skateboarding was like, whatever.
What was that at that point?
World champion of Cheetos, whatever, same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I kind of met him at that point. I didn't really get to know him all that well. And then after like 6 or 7 years at Airwalk, I became the art director at Snowboarder magazine. And Tony's brother, Steve, was my boss there.
Okay.
And I got to know Steve really well, and Steve was a hilarious, dry humor kind of guy, and we got along really well. And when Tony launched Hawk Clothing, they asked me to do a logo for their company. So I did that, so I was kind of reconnected to him at that point. And so then, at some point, we relaunched Skateboarder magazine had been out of print for a while.
Right.
And they owned that title as well. And so I got chosen to art direct that magazine, and they brought Tony in as like a, guest editor kind of thing.
Right.
And so then we kind of got to know each other a little bit then, and we put out a pretty good magazine, I think. And then in 2002, I was doing a .com thing, and Tony's career had just really taken off. And
Right.
kind of the very end of 1999 is when he did the big 900 on ESPN, and his video game came out, and everything was just blowing up, and he needed to kind of start building his business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going to work for him in 2002, and been with him ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Must be exciting for you.
It's pretty fun. I mean, we get to do pretty crazy things. Just, you work for a company and you don't really think, you just get these normal benefits of being at a job or whatever.
Yeah.
With Tony, there's like some famous person will come in, you get to meet them, and they're comfortable because they're in your office, and so you really get to just talk to them and stuff.
Chill.
And chill and stuff. And we were talking right before we started recording this. This weekend was Tony Hawk's 50th birthday, and there was this big surprise party for him up in LA. And
Right.
John Doe and Exene played a set, and Love and Rockets played a set. But before all of that happened, Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo, who Tony's friends with,
Right.
and doing some stuff with as well that'll all be coming out pretty soon. That's going to be pretty cool. Mark Mothersbaugh earlier in the day recorded kind of a weird version of one of his songs, and he has one of those booths where you can record a 45 like Jack White does.
Right.
And so he went in and he recorded this on these weird old synthesizers and stuff, and recorded this song, and it kind of turned into a weird happy birthday song. And so he came out at the beginning when they all started coming out on stage to do the show. He came out and he holds up this 45. He's like, "This is the only one. I recorded this afternoon. There's one side that's got vocals on it and one side that doesn't. And so I'm going to use the side that doesn't, like karaoke, and play this." And he put it on this little turntable and sang this weird little song, and it was really great. And it still sounds just like Devo. I mean, his voice is so unmistakable, and he's got these funny little mannerisms and stuff. And so he did the song, and then at the end he handed Tony the 45. And then Tony came off stage and he didn't know quite what to do with it, but he wanted it safe, so he handed it to me, and we just put it in my girlfriend's purse and and walked around the rest of the night. And she was scared to death somebody was going to like bump into her and crack the 45 or something.
Right.
And but anyway, so at one point I asked Mark Mothersbaugh to get a picture with holding the record, and then we just kind of stood there for a second, and I was like, I got this kind of interesting, funny song about Whip It, when Whip It first came out. And he's like, and I thought he was going to go, yeah, what's your song? And he was like, oh, really? Well, what is it, So I told him this little funny story about being in a bar, and the bartender would like turn off Whip It every single time it came on. He'd push the button behind the bar and reject the jukebox, And so we just would go over and just put quarter after quarter after quarter, And he just thought that was the funniest song, like little story. And then he started telling me some weird story about, oh, somebody sent me this thing on the news the other day, and he's like looking through his phone and thumbing through and like, trying to show me this thing on his phone, and I'm seeing like messages scroll by from famous people and stuff, And it was the weirdest moment, and I felt like I could have stood there and talked to him for a while, but I was like, I wasn't ready for it, so I didn't know,
Yeah.
But anyway, so those little weird moments pop up working for Tony that's like, pretty surreal sometimes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You talking about Mothersbaugh. I remember when Yo Gabba Gabba came out.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it with my kids, and I just thought it was cool to sing, because I'm like, oh my God, that's Weezer.
Yeah.
Like these bands are coming on,
Right.
and you know who they are. Well, and Mothersbaugh like does this segment where he does these doodles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the guy from Devo.
Yeah.
It was just the coolest show.
Yeah, Tony was on that show one time too. His
Oh, he
episode
was?
was pretty funny, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know.
Cool stories, man.
Yeah. Tony's got I guess Tony knows the guy from Yo Gabba Gabba, but I don't think I should tell that rest of that story.
Nah.
Yeah.
We can leave that out.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's his kid stuff.
So, Jamie, I remember you started a website called Men That Look Like Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
before we go into that,
All right.
there was something else you were talking about, the one that got away.
The ones that got away.
What?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, so over the years, I think every guitar player has that story about the one that got away, that one guitar they wish they had back.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, you can bring that up to every famous guitar player, every non-famous guitar player. They've got that one guitar. They're like, oh, that was my first guitar. I wish I had it back. Or maybe it was, for me, the one that got away was this Telecaster that I bought up in LA back in like the 90s. There were all those vintage stores up in LA, right on Hollywood Boulevard or Sunset. And I went in one and there was this like 71 thin line Telecaster, black, awesome. Bruce Springsteen was standing in the store and he like gave me the nod of approval when I bought it.
Whoa.
Pretty crazy. Anyway, and that was the guitar I would have never gotten rid of.
Pretty boss.
And as it turns out, when you owe taxes, Uncle Sam wants that money. I thought maybe they would just never come for it. But anyway, so one day I went to get my rent money out of the ATM machine, and there wasn't any in there. Uncle Sam took it all. So I had like one recourse was to go sell this guitar, So that's the one I wish I had back. So everybody's got that story about the guitar, And I started to notice, I kind of like I'll look on Craigslist and I'll find a cool guitar and maybe hang on to it for a while and then sell it and make a little money off of it, or something like that. Or I'll get bored with something and sell it or whatever, And so I kind of started keeping track of the stories that went with each guitar. And then I started remembering like all the guitars that I had, and it turned out to be a lot of them. So I would dig up a photo of this guitar or that guitar and write up the story. And so I started this blog, and I would make a new post every once in a while with this story of this guitar. And people started going to it and checking it out. And I think over time, there became so many different stories. I think a friend of mine got obsessed with this whole thing. He's obsessed with me not selling things. And
so he can buy them, right?
Well, no, he's just like, you should keep your guitars, And I'm like, yeah, but I only bought this one because I was going to sell it and make a $300 profit on it, And so anyway, so he actually went on the website and did a spreadsheet and figured out how many guitars and effects pedals and stuff. And there was like over 90 guitars that are on there.
Wow.
So over time now, when somebody Googles, 70s Epiphone Wilshire, chances are there's one on my website or whatever that's going to pop up and they'll go and read that story. So I get a fair number of hits on a daily basis, just because of the variety of content on there with all the different guitars and stuff. So, but then some of the stories are just pretty straightforward. I bought this and I sold it for $300, and the guy was kind of weird. And then there's like, one time there was this ad on Craigslist, and it was down in South San Diego. And I went down there, and this house had this really long driveway that you had to kind of go up. And I had my kids with me in the car. And there was this Music Man amp from the 70s that was like super cheap. And I knew I could buy it and either keep it or flip it or whatever. And I pull up, and as I'm getting the kids out of the car, and they were both toddlers, I look up and these two guys kind of step out of the garage. The garage door was open and it was all like lights on, busy stuff in there. These guys step out and they've got guns. And I'm like, oh, and it's too late because I'm out of the car and my kids are out of the car.
Right.
And then at that point, it looks really weird to just jump in the car and drive off really fast. That looks even scarier. So I'm like, hey, how's it going? What's up? And these guys are like, what's up? What are you doing here? And I said, I just answered a Craigslist ad. I'm here to buy the amp, And my kids don't even notice, they're looking around.
Right.
Thank goodness, And just about that time, this lady comes running out through, from the house, and she's like, oh, hey, guys, don't worry about it. That's just Jamie. He's here to buy the Music Man amp, Grandpa's amp. And I'm like, hey, it's just me. Don't worry. Don't shoot me,
The Clampetts are out there guarding the house,
she's like, come on through the garage. And as I walk through the garage, I look, and there's like tons of guns and stuff in the garage.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they had some sort of meth lab going or what they had going on there, but it was super sketchy. And so at that point, I still wanted the amp though, right?
Right.
It's like I know there's guys with guns and stuff, and maybe there's like a completely illegal operation going on, but I really want that
I've
amp.
gone this far.
Yeah, I've gone this far.
Yeah.
So I went in, and there's the amp sitting there, and it looked great. And she's like, "You want to like plug something in?" Nope, it's good, $300 for the amp, that's great,
Wow.
And so then I gave her money and picked it up and just, come on, kids, let's go. I just waved goodbye to the guys with the guns on the way out.
And wipe your brow.
At that point, they all,
away, right?
had kind of relaxed and put the guns down,
Oh, man.
But it was crazy, super crazy. And, you just never know. Craigslist can be interesting.
Yeah.
But I've met like crazy interesting people on Craigslist too, nicest people that do the coolest stuff. So anyway, some of the stories that are on the blog end up being about some of these people that are doing cool stuff too,
That's really cool.
Anyway, but so it's ended up becoming this really, it's actually been written up in a bunch of the different guitar magazines, like, here's a cool website to go check out.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll definitely put the blog address or any of your web addresses in the
cool.
in the show notes.
Yeah.
On the podcast. So
Cool. Yeah.
very cool. And then, so do you know Kenny Rogers, or how did this whole thing with Kenny Rogers get started?
Yeah, so I have this website called menwholooklikeKennyRogers.com.
Okay.
And I had originally thought of this idea even before the internet came around, because I'm old. And I had thought about this to do this art project where you would, because I noticed that there was a lot of men who look like Kenny Rogers. Like you'd go to the mall or you'd be at Home Depot or, I don't know, hot rod races or something, whatever. And there would be these men with kind of long flowing silver hair and a white beard, and they looked like, that gambler era Kenny Rogers, And I thought, it'd be funny to like take a Polaroid camera or something with you and take pictures of these guys and just have a whole wall of men who look like Kenny Rogers. Mm-hmm. But, that would take forever to do, right? So it would be a funny art project if you could do it. But anyway, then the internet came along, and there were websites like, mullets galore, mullet websites and pictures of people at, the Walmart one came later. But, but just funny, weird websites. But there wasn't anything that had those really weird long names like menwholooklikeKennyRogers.com. That was novel in itself. And so so I just thought, I want to learn how to make websites. That's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to learn how to do it by making this website. Mm-hmm. And so I bought the domain name, and I found some pictures of Kenny Rogers lookalikes online. And then I went to the mall, and sure enough, there was a guy, so I took a picture of that guy, and then I snuck a picture of another guy. And so I just started it off with maybe like 10 or 15 Kenny lookalike guys. And then I thought, it needs a little more, so I was like, let's make up some tips of how to look like Kenny, And like, where would you go to look for Kennys? Well, IHOP and Home Depot and all these different places. So I made a list of like, here's places you can spot Kennys at, and just all these different things. And so I made this little website, and then the next day after I got it all done and it worked, and I was amazed that it worked, I sent it to like 3 or 4 friends, and they wrote back and they were like, that's the funniest thing I've seen on the internet. That's amazing. And they started sending it to their friends, and they started sending it to their friends, as the old saying goes. And the next thing you know, like I had 100 people saw it in one day, and I was like, no way.
Wow.
And then a friend of mine sent me a picture, emailed me a picture of a guy he saw, and I was like, oh, well, that's what this has got to be. People have got to send in their pictures of Kennys.
Right.
So then it started building up, and people, just to make a really long story short, people started sending in photos of their Kennys. And so I would name them, and they would be like, gray suit Kenny and, green teeth Kenny, because some guy would have these gnarly green teeth, and, whatever. There was like all these weird names that went with them, and people thought that was funny.
Right.
And the next thing you know, Harry Shearer, who does all the voices on The Simpsons and was on SCTV and Saturday Night Live and all that, was on a TV show, and somebody said, well, you're a funny guy. What do you find funny? And he said, well, I saw this website the other day called Men Who Look Like Kenny Rogers, and it's got to be the funniest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. And then like from there, it just went boom, you know.
Wow.
And so then people started asking Kenny Rogers about it. I think he was on the Today Show, and Matt Lauer asked him about it. He's like, "What's up with this website?" And he said, "Oh, well, you know, this guy did this site. I don't really have anything to do with it, and but you know, it seems pretty funny, so I let him do it." And I actually had to sign an agreement with him, you know, because he had to protect his name and stuff.
Right.
But anyway, but then he said, "Yeah, I like Hot Tub Kenny's my favorite." So then, of course, you know, had to like put Hot Tub Kenny like really big. Yeah. But anyway, but it just ended up becoming this thing, and then it got named as one of Yahoo's top 100 websites in the history of the entire internet.
Wow.
So I've always got that in my back pocket, you know.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So when is Fallon going to come out and
I don't know.
Say something about this?
There was always like people would email me stuff all the time and say stuff like, you know, my husband and I are going to be traveling across the country on our Winnebago, and we'd love to come by your offices and meet the staff. I'm like, yeah, the staff is me sitting in my underwear on a Saturday night. Yeah. You know, like there's no staff here. What do you think, you know? And then people started sending in ideas like, I think you should do men who look like JanetReno.com. And I'm like, at the time, Janet Reno was, you know. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound nice. And then it was like, you know, well, how about women that look like MichaelLandon.com? Ha, ha, ha.
Oh, man.
And then it just got weirder. And then I was just like, okay, that's enough.
That's enough, yeah.
So anyway, it still exists. I just kind of put like an abbreviated version on my own website of it, and people still come to it all the time. But, you know, it was really popular, huge about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember I just didn't know the full story behind it.
Yeah.
I thought that people might want to hear the story because it's just so funny.
Yeah, every once in a while, I'll get a letter that says something about cease and desist, and I have to call Kenny's lawyers and ask them to send me a letter that says, you know, like I make T-shirts.
Right.
And the T-shirt company will get some complaint and say, that's a copyright infringement. And I go, no, I got a letter right here from Kenny Rogers that says it's okay.
Right. Well, that's cool. You have that.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that story, Jim.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a weird one, but
it's weird, but it's fascinating, you know? Like you're a prolific idea guy, it seems. You know, you have these ideas and you know, let's do this. Let's explore this a little bit more and then build a website and
well, you know, I kind of got to this mode where I've got this friend Roger, and he and I were the art directors at Airwalk. And we would, you know, we're both creative people. He's a really great art director and illustrator and all kinds of stuff. And we would see something that was cool, and we'd say stuff like, you know, I could do that, or, you know, I could have come up with something like that. But we weren't doing anything. And so we just decided one day, like, let's act on the things that we come up with. And so that was one of them, was like, you know, that's a funny idea. Instead of just letting it go to waste, I'm going to do something with it, you know. Well, then I learned a lesson from men who look like KennyRogers.com that I should have figured out how to monetize it better. And that was kind of early days of the internet. So then I had an idea called Redneck Words of Wisdom.
Yeah, I remember the book that you gave me.
And then it was kind of similar in that people sent stuff in. It was like redneck sayings, you know?
Yeah.
And it was kind of when the redneck thing was hot, but it's like real sayings people say, like, you know, that's hotter than a Walmart parking lot in August, or, you know, stuff like that. And so I compiled those and ended up getting a book deal out of those. But, you know, you just, like, I learned a lesson from the Kenny thing, and, you know, like, act on your ideas, because some of them are going to hit. And nothing's too stupid. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, whatever, who cares? Yeah. But then I also learned, okay, you need to also figure out how to make money off of it if you're going to put that much time and effort into it.
Absolutely.
So.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Learning those lessons.
Yes. I still learn that lesson a lot. The wrong way.
It's the balance of time, you know, that's the whole thing for me anyway. But this is about you, so.
Yeah, but you're kind of the same way. Like, you know, you start off with a guitar repair business, and now you've got guitars for sale, and you know, and now we're doing this podcast, and it's like, you know, the obvious segues from one thing to another that all kind of makes sense, you know.
Yeah, well, I think we're both entrepreneurs, and we have that mindset, and so there's that constant ticking of, I have an idea.
Yeah.
You know. Start making my own guitars, and well, okay, I didn't like that, so that's going on the back burner.
Right.
And then I just started USA Guitar Consignment .com. It's a reverb store.
Oh, cool.
But I'm probably also going to have a website just to,
Yeah.
just to put stuff on. But it's just, I wanted to give it just this name that sounded official. I
Right.
guess that's probably
Half the time, that's all it is. It's like the people saying, I'm going to get in the Winnebago and come meet your staff for Kenny Rogers,
Yeah.
Like, if people think it's real, and if people see something that looks bigger than it is, they buy into it more.
Mm-hmm.
And I always I'll do little projects and stuff, and if you just make it look good and make it seem real, people will believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it might just be you, and it might just be, you and one other person or something or whatever, and they may think that it's this huge company somewhere,
Well, and that's what you do.
But that's all it
too.
takes sometimes, is two people to do something.
I think that's what you do though too, is that because you're a designer, you come up with these logos that have to convey a message,
Right.
and trust, and hey, we should check this out because it's cool.
Right.
And I see all the photos you take of all the old vintage signs.
Right.
And that's actually kind of giving me some ideas
Oh,
for
yeah.
my new logo.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, so I remember when I was at Hensley's actually, and you were there, and you invited me up to play with you.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But since then, and it's been several years, you've started a band called Murders of Love, and I think you guys have a record coming out here soon.
Yeah, the Murders of Love kind of started off as a solo project, and there's a song called Murder of Love that I wrote a number of years ago, and that was going to be on the album, and so I started recording the album, and mostly just in my own. I've got like a little design studio behind my house, and it's not really a recording studio, but I once I took a break from music for a little while because I developed adult onset asthma that was causing some problems where I couldn't sing as well. But you know how it goes. You still want to play and stuff, right? And so at some point I had continued to write songs, and I thought, well, I got to do something with this, no matter what, whether it's for me and three friends or whether it's something that takes off and does something. I just want to record it, and I want to take the time to do it right. And so I had owned this 16-track recorder, digital recorder, previously, and I really liked it. And I had read an article about the fact that they were, people were buying them and really using them to record real albums on and stuff. There was this cult following with them.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's cool. I already know how to use that machine. I'm going to find one. And I looked on Craigslist, and there was one for sale up in LA. And I just wrote to the guy and I said, hey, do you still have this? And can I come buy it tonight? And it was already fairly late. We're in San Diego, and this was LA. And he was like, yeah, I'm up in Hollywood. I could meet you at like 11 at this 7-Eleven store. So I was like, I'm in, I'm doing this. You get excited about a music project or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then I jumped in the car and I drove up to LA, and I met the guy there, and there was this massive Armenian biker gang had gathered in the parking lot. And I mean, it didn't look like a place to be doing a Craigslist transaction, right?
Right.
But I'm standing there and I got my arms crossed, and the guy wasn't there yet, and I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable. And
Right. Guys with guns?
Nobody with guns showing.
Okay.
And pretty soon this guy comes whipping in the parking lot. I was afraid he was going to hit one of these guys or something. And he pulls in right next to me, and he opens up the trunk of his car, and he's like, you the guy for the recorder? And I said, yep. And he goes, okay, $300. And I said, okay. I handed him $300, and he hands me the recorder, and then we both just left, and like I didn't even hardly look at it, but I just figured it was meant to be. So anyway, so I set up my little studio at home, and I started recording the basic tracks on these songs, and then I thought, well, I know Alan Dermo plays bass, with famous people. He's like tours with Belinda Carlisle and Men at Work, and he used to be with Glenn Fry and John Denver for years and all this stuff. Like, I should get like a real bass player to play the bass, So Alan played on a tune. And then, my friend Tim is the A&R guy at Taylor Guitars. And he had told me one time that he played lap steel. And he used to tour with Laura Branigan in America and all these people in like late 80s and stuff.
Right.
And so I just kind of decided, I know a lot of people, and I should just ask everybody to play on a tune or two or something, and call in favors and really make this the one album that I really put the right effort into and try to do something cool with. And so I got all these great people, these friends of mine, to record tracks for me. And then I got this one friend of mine that's a bass player, ended up doing quite a bit of the album with me and kind of became a co-producer because he was a really good sounding board. And it just turned into this bigger project, and it started feeling more like a band. Even though it was a lot of individual performances, it started feeling like a band. And then, like, I'm at soccer practice one night. My son was on a new soccer team, and he's a kid, younger kid at the time. And I start talking to this other dad, and I said, "What do you do?" And he goes, "Oh, I run the musical instrument department for a group of pawn shops." I was like, "Oh, I got to know you,
Yeah.
And we start talking, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I play fiddle and bass and keyboards and all this stuff." And I was like, "You're in my band, And so the next thing, he's like playing fiddle, and he's amazing, Jason Postelnik. And then my friend Rob's been my drummer for years and years, great drummer, and he did all the drums. And then he was in the process of putting a recording studio in his house. So by the time we spent like a year and a half recording this whole thing, by that point in time, he had a studio, and he did all the mixing and did all the mastering. And, we just kind of put some time and effort into it and made it this project that it is. And the start of the conversation about this was, it started as a solo project.
Right.
It needed a name. By the time we were done, it needed to have a name, not just my name on it, because it was a group effort. And so it just sort of, we had played a gig, and it sort of stuck, and we became the Murderers of Love. And part of that was, it was a cool name.
Yeah.
I just liked it. And it came from the movie Dan in Real Life.
Okay.
Steve Carell. The daughter's mad at him, and she says, "You're just a murderer of love."
Yeah.
And so that had always stuck with me. And so that happened. But then also, most of the people that recorded on the album had, had a divorce or two under their belt, or, some bad relationship stories and stuff like that. So we were really actually the Murderers of Love. So it just all came together, and kind of did a soft promotion of it when it first came out in October in 2017. And I haven't really done a big thing with it yet. I guess I need to kind of do a little push, but it's on Spotify and Apple Music and Tidal and all those different places that you can get it. But my plan was to kind of figure out which songs people like the best and take that and promote. And so I, once again, just through all the different weird, situations of working for Tony and different people I know, luckily a lot of people in radio and stuff like that. And
that's cool.
So I'm going to do a little push here probably next month and try to get it out there more.
Right on.
Yeah.
Very cool. You got me with the pink bunny suit. Where did that come from?
So the album cover is really cool. No credit to me. This photographer named Western Dottie is a photographer in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where I grew up. And he's also the bartender at this really cool dive bar in Tulsa, and where Bill Hader's dad hangs out there. And, all these different people that are these cool, artsy, and interesting and funny people. Yes, and Stefan's dad.
He's awesome.
And in fact, he's like the Midwestern champion storyteller or something like that.
His dad is?
His dad is,
Okay.
yeah. He's like the raconteur kind of guy.
Okay.
And Western's this super interesting guy. And I started following him on Instagram, and he posted this photo of this guy in a pink bunny outfit. But it's not just like a pink bunny outfit. It's like seedy looking. And he's sitting in this really bad looking hotel with a remote control. Like,
dark,
life has gone wrong, right? And who knows what's going on there at all, nothing good. And I just fell in love with the photo. The instant I saw it, I was like, that's my album cover.
It gets your attention, man.
Yeah.
It really does.
And I didn't want a picture of me on the cover or anything,
Right.
And so I contacted him, and I said, my friend introduced me to you one time, and I don't know if you remember me, but I really want to use this photo on my cover. So we worked out a deal, and I paid him to use it, and I've been trying to get a hold of the bunny suit to record a video, because I want to have like a guy in the bunny suit, like driving around in a cool car and like trying to pick up hookers and like weird stuff.
man.
Anyway, but and then the video ends up with him like in the hotel, like with the remote control in his hand, and
Right.
maybe maybe he takes off the bunny suit and it's somebody famous or something like that, or
Right.
whatever. But that's the plan still. But I can't seem to get a hold of him to get the bunny suit. Maybe he'll hear this.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
And then like a package will show up and it's like a really sweaty, dirty bunny suit.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not what most people expect when they open the mail.
Yeah. There's a lot of symbolism in what you're talking about.
I think so.
Quite honestly, it's just ideas.
Yeah. I want it to be like this, like rainy downtown, kind of wet, and there's like he's driving in this like old Galaxy or something like that, and you just see him driving around and up to no good,
So you've mentioned there's a lot of instrumentation on this new record that you're doing, from
Right.
banjos to mandolins to guitars to other instruments. So I can only assume it's pretty eclectic in its approach. But you had mentioned something about having a hearing loss in one of your ears. How did that affect the process of making that record?
Yeah, well, it was it was weird because I got super gung-ho, and I like I said, I went and bought this recorder and I started putting down the basic tracks for the album, and I had gotten about 1 or 2 songs done, and I had really just sort of started hitting my stride, and I was feeling good about things, and I was sitting around watching TV one night, and just completely out of the blue, I just lost the hearing in my left ear. No explanation for it whatsoever.
Gosh, like a ringing happened, or
No, there was no ring. It was just dead.
Wow.
It almost felt like maybe I needed to clean my ear out really well or
Right.
something, And so that's what I thought I must need to do, like a little ear cleaning kit or something like that. And so I tried that and nothing happened. And then I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's probably just, it's going to be fine. Your hearing will come back. It's no big deal." Well, a couple of weeks went by and nothing happened. So I got an appointment with a specialist and said, hey, I'm, kind of part-time musician guy here. I need to be able to hear.
Yeah.
And so he eventually put me on some really heavy-duty steroids and some stuff. And I got about half of the hearing back in my left ear, but all of the mid frequencies are gone.
Wow.
So the highs and lows are there, but the mids are gone, and it's weird how that affects you. And at some point, I just figured, well, I guess that's as good as it's going to get, and I got to figure out how to keep playing music,
Yeah.
And so now, you put the headphones on, and you don't know 100% whether to trust what you're hearing.
Right.
If you're mixing and stuff like that, or trying to get tones on guitars and things like that.
Yeah.
So it was, it was an interesting thing to kind of deal with. Now I'm used to it, but I have to get used to making sure I sit on the correct side of people and
Right.
stuff like that,
Right. That had to be kind of scary when that happened.
Yeah, it was weird, really weird. And I keep thinking, like, I don't know why, but you keep kind of holding out hope that maybe it'll slowly but surely come back, but it doesn't seem to be. Yeah. I don't know. The specialist looked at it and stuff, and unfortunately, he actually said to me, if I would have like seen this like right on the first day, maybe we could have got started on the steroids quicker and we could have done this. But which pisses me off because my doctor, who's no longer my doctor now, was so nonchalant about it, and he was like, "Oh, it's fine. It's going to be fine." Kind of like, you're psychosomatic or something or whatever.
Oh,
I don't know what he thought, but he was kind of that way about a lot of stuff, and so I luckily just finally after years decided to get rid of the guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, maybe
Sorry.
could have had a little bit better back, but at least I got some back.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm happy about that.
So, Jamie, how long have you been playing guitar for?
Way too long to be as bad at it as I am. But I started playing in college. I had a friend of mine that lived down the hall from me that had a really cool Gibson J45, and I really wanted to learn how to play guitar just because I wanted to write songs. Like I never really wanted to be Eddie Van Halen or like, you know, the lead guitar player guy so much. I really wanted to write songs.
Right.
So, you know, he would give me like a little piece of paper with A minor and G and stuff written on it and with the chords. And so I just kind of taught myself how to play. And then after a couple of years, I just kind of wanted to learn how to write songs more than anything else. And so I kind of started writing little funny parody songs maybe about local stuff that was happening. I was going to college in a small town in Oklahoma. And, you know, I wrote a song about the little 24-hour diner that we would go to and get fries and gravy, written to the tune of Take It Easy by the Eagles, you know, that kind of thing.
Was it fries and gravy?
Fries and gravy, fries and gravy. And so, you know, so I'd play those at like the little college open mic nights. And then I wrote a few songs and I thought they were really good, and now I hear them and they're really bad. But I would drive 2 hours to go to Oklahoma City to play an open mic night somewhere, you know.
Right.
There was really only one. At that time, there weren't a lot of coffee houses and stuff, you know. And so I would drive all the way over there and play my 3 songs and feel really good about it and come home. And then I moved to California, and I actually tried out for this show on the Nashville network that was like an American Idol show before American Idol and all that stuff. And I was the first alternate. If any one of those people had backed out, I would have been on the show.
Oh, wow.
And not a single one of them backed out.
Oh.
But anyway, then I moved to California and started playing like local gigs. I got a friend of mine that I'd met one time, actually. He wasn't a friend of mine at the time. He was the roommate of a guy I worked with. And I knew that he played guitar. And I went to get my very first gig ever at Hennessy's Tavern in Carlsbad, California. And the guy said, you know, we don't really do solo acts. We just do duos here. I said, oh, yeah, no, I got a duo too. And he said, okay, yeah, well, that's cool. And I said, okay, cool. Well, so we're on? And he said, yeah. And I said, cool. And I thought, well, I got to go call that guy Greg and see if he would do this gig with me. Oh, hey, so, you know, when do you want us to play? And he said, how about tomorrow night? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. How, like, what, a couple of sets or what? And he says, no, 4 sets. And I said, okay, great. So I went over and found this guy's house and knocked on the door, and he needed money and agreed to do it. We each made $62.50.
Do like 8 songs per set? Kind of
yeah,
thing?
We kind of,
Repeat
you know, he had been in a lot of bands, and I thought he was going to know a lot of stuff. He was actually in this kind of somewhat known metal band in the 80s called Villain. And their singer went on to become more famous with another band. And but they had their own following and stuff. And I thought he was going to know a lot more songs. And the only song he came up with all night was Dust in the Wind. And so he played Dust in the Wind a couple of times, you know, and we did stuff. Nobody noticed. And we had our first gig. And then, like, not very much longer after that, it was going pretty good and we sounded good together. He sang well and he sang harmony with me and stuff. And the next thing, we're opening up for Leon Russell.
Wow.
And I'm from Tulsa, and Leon Russell's originally from Tulsa. He's like one of the more famous guys out of Tulsa. And so we opened up for Leon Russell, and I was going to meet Leon Russell and backstage at the Belly Up, and his manager said, oh yeah, you want to say hi to him? And I said, sure. Yeah, you know, I'm from Tulsa. I want to say thanks for being a Tulsa guy and me opening up and all that. And
an early influence for you.
Early influence for me, yeah, definitely. And the manager goes, oh, don't mention Tulsa. He's like, he's got some bad business dealings going in Tulsa, and he doesn't, like, it'll really upset him if you mention Tulsa. You still want to go say hi to him? And I was like, yeah, no, I guess not.
Gosh, it killed it for you.
Yeah. But so anyway, so then we went from having that duo, and then we kind of did a cover band together, and then that morphed into an original band called Angel House. And our third gig in Angel House was opening up for Cheap Trick.
No way.
Yeah. And so that's pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And then all went downhill from there forever.
Oh my God.
But so we opened up for Cheap Trick, and then we opened up for the Plimsouls, you know, Million Miles Away. And then we opened up for a band called Bloodlines that had the sons or nephews or whatever of famous people. So like Miles Davis's son was in the band. I think he was either the bass player or the drummer or something. One of the Allman Brothers, Sons was in the band, I think, and Joe Bonamassa was.
Oh,
Is that how you say his last name?
Bonamassa, yeah.
Yeah. He was the guitar player, and he was like 17 years old.
Wow.
He was the only one that didn't have a famous father, but he was the ringer. He was the best guy in the band. And so we opened up for them. We opened up for a bunch of famous people, but none as humongous as Cheap Trick. You know?
Right.
And yeah. So we had that band together for a while, and but that band was kind of like a real pop, alternative rock kind of a band. And I was kind of writing songs that probably would have fit more Americana kind of style, and that's what I grew up with, was that Tulsa sound, with Leon Russell, and just kind of a bluesy soul country kind of thing coming out of there. And that's kind of, I actually even had a guy from a record label say, well, you should dump this kind of a thing that you're doing and just kind of go solo, and I'd be interested in you as more of like an Americana kind of guy. And I really loved our band at the time, and I didn't want to do that, and I thought we had something going.
Yeah.
And so we kind of stuck it out, and maybe I should have done that, but anyway.
Well, you wouldn't be here if you did, right?
Exactly. And so that's always been sort of my thing that I always came back to, was good songs and a lot of blues and country and rock and pop and whatever, and that's kind of what the album is.
Yeah.
Is just a mixture of stuff, and I just sort of call it like music for grown-ups.
The sound of Murders of Love.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Music for grown-ups.
That's where it's come to. Music for grown-ups. There's a little of everything on there. There's a blues song. There's a real country song. There's a song that kind of rocks. There's just a mixture of stuff. But when you listen to the whole album, it still feels cohesive.
Yeah.
Without sounding like, well, there's a country song.
Right.
So
aside from Leon Russell, are there any other influences that come through in how you play and how you approach songwriting?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's always a tough one, I think. I'm a huge Ryan Adams fan. And
he's relatively new.
Well, not kind of, but
Sorta.
not. I mean, I think his bigger popularity is new, but I mean, he was in Whiskey Town back in 80s, 90s,
Okay.
And then, his first big break where he got kind of famous was like right after 9/11, so that was 2001. So he's been at it for a long time. And I've been a fan of his since the very beginning of his career, I guess.
I didn't know that. I've been listening to the
kind of newer
more
stuff.
new stuff,
Yeah.
and I didn't know it went that
Yeah, and
far
I'm a big
back.
fan. You know how that goes too. Like you end up liking the old stuff because that's what brought you to it, sort of,
Right.
But some of his older albums are just absolutely fantastic, and a
Yeah.
lot of his fans still hang on those albums. But so Ryan Adams is one of my favorite guys, and these days Jason Isbell is a great songwriter. But kind of growing up, I listened to a huge amount of different stuff. My dad was into country music, and we listened to Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard and all of that kind of stuff. And my mom was into Motown and, a lot of soul music. And my first concert when I was like 5 or 6 years old was James Brown.
Wow.
And then my second concert was Willie Nelson. And then my third concert was Sly and the Family Stone. So, just this big mix of stuff growing up. And
I work on Sly's basses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. How did that happen?
How does it happen with you?
Right.
You just know somebody and
Yeah.
and they
Does he
say,
live locally?
yeah,
No way.
you want to meet him?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I want to tell him, like, I saw him in Tulsa when I was like 11 years old.
Crazy.
And then the opening act was a band from Tulsa that had not been signed to a record deal yet, and it was the Gap Band.
Okay.
And they were a local band and they were amazing. Like, you could tell they seemed famous, and they were just locals.
Wow.
And then Dr. John was the band in the middle. And he had just had that big hit, I've been in the right place, but it must have been a wrong time. Anyway, it was an amazing show. I still remember every detail of it. And so there's that, and I think I've always loved good songwriting, and my dad's always been into songwriters and that kind of music.
So your dad was a big influence on you then?
I guess just thinking in terms of songs, maybe so, yeah. He really loved Willie Nelson and the whole outlaw movement at the time, and kind of traditional country and George Jones and all of that kind of stuff. And so I kind of remember a lot of that stuff growing up. And then, I hear a lot of times people tell me that I sound a little like Chris Isaac's voice when I sing or something, and I love that style of music as well, and kind of Smithereens and just a good pop song sort of that kind of rocks a bit, like any of that kind of stuff. And the Bodines were one of my favorite bands of all time, and I loved some of their early albums. Dwight Yoakam from that time period, Steve Earle, that kind of early return of country kind of thing, So all of that, I would say, throw that in a bucket, and stir it up a bit.
And we got Murders of Love.
That's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that story, Jamie. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we decided, since we're in the shop and we're surrounded by guitars, that we're going to play something. I've never heard this song.
Yeah.
What's it called, Jamie?
It's called Like a Sparrow. It's on the new Murders of Love album. And hopefully you'll like it as you learn it as we play it.
I will definitely learn it as we play it. And Jamie's playing a custom Martin with an Addy spruce top and cocobolo with some nice sapwood there in the side and slot head. This is a John Ramsey D28 for those of you who know what that is. This one's for sale though. Anyway, little plug.
Sunset in the desert sky, like a fire in the devil's eye. Cool breeze as the sun begins to fade. All quiet on the western shore, not sure what we came here for. Now and then I believe we've been betrayed. People go, you fall in love but you never know. Things can change before you get the chance to breathe. You take a chance every now and then, but it's getting hard enough to just pretend. We're all just looking for the one we can believe. Like a sparrow, straight and narrow, I can feel I'm free. Getting stronger, not much longer, have to wait and see. Bring the net, I'm falling, would you catch me if you can? Things would be so simple if you'd only hold my hand for a while. For a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That was awesome.
You know what? I couldn't remember one of the verses, so I just thought, we'll do like a short version of it,
There it
And
is.
it'll be like a little fade out or something.
I loved it. I love that.
That's cool. I love it.